The night was dark, but Alison could see perfectly well. She followed Tiberius Bork. The man stayed away from the lights and often turned and walked down the alleyways. Alison followed him. Block by block they walked. It was getting late. Alison was tired, but she was persistent and would pursue any lead she could. What was the man's plan? What did he do in the dark? Why was he not asleep at night? Midnight was minutes away. Alison looked up to see that the church bell tower was not far from her. When the clock struck 12 she would know and she would want to go home as soon as she could. That night seemed to be the longest she had lasted awake, but she would not break. Tiberius often turned his head in different directions, as well as constantly looking over his shoulder. Alison thought that Tiberius was more careful than his son, but Peter was probably playing a game that she could not understand. That was what made him more of the threat than his father, but whatever information that could be gained from following Peter's father was valuable to Alison and her family. Her diary would be the first to know. Then came Roderick. The loyalty she held for her eldest brother was very important to her, but secretly, she wished he would be less strict. Alison knew that nothing in her life would matter if her family was not safe. Safety was gained by any advantage that she could find, and information was the greatest advantage that her family held, but Bork and the others were attempting to cut the hand that held that advantage. It would not be done with open violence, but with words. Alison knew this, so that was why she did what she did, despite Roderick's disapproval. Tiberius Bork was good at what he did, but not that good. Not good enough to outpace and outperform Alison. Tiberius had now come out from an alleyway. Alison followed closely behind him. They were on grass now. Alison felt uneasy coming back here after dark, but it had to be done, no matter the cost. Alison walked quietly and watched Bork closely. Alison moved like Olivia the cat and heard and saw just as well as her. Tiberius Bork opened the door to the church. He did not close it and simply walked in. Alison sprinted to the church. She looked in and saw Tiberius walking towards the altar. He was the only one inside the church, but Alison could sense something that made her feel uneasy and uncomfortable, but still she commanded her strength to push her further forward. Alison slipped into the church with silence. Alison made her way into the sanctuary, where Tiberius Bork knelt before the altar. She stood in the back and did not make a sound. Several candles were laid out on the altar. Alison thought that this was odd. She believed that this was in some violation of a rule, but she was not willing to leave the shadows to bring this news to Tiberius Bork. She was not stupid. One by one the candles were lit, and one by one the new light illuminated Tiberius more and more as the seconds passed in the dark cathedral. Tiberius began praying and Alison was beginning to feel as though this was probably a waste of time on her part. Tiberius Bork's eyes seemed to slightly dilate. Alison thought the man was looking at something that she could not see.